Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and on this episode I was speaking to Eleanor Birdsall-Smith, who is producer of the sellout Edinburgh Fringe show Cowboys and Lesbians, which is about to embark on a 3-week run at the Park Theatre in London and the Wardrobe in Bristol. We talk about her background in TV, her Fringe experiences, including the importance of reviews and the tactics of flyering, as well as the impact of a name change to the show. I started the interview by asking Eleanor to give a bit more information about herself.
So I am Eleanor. I'm the producer of Cowboys and Lesbians, which is a show that we took to the Fringe and is now going to Park Theatre and Bristol Wardrobe Theatre. It's a romantic comedy with added sexy cowboys. It's a story about two teenage girls in London who kind of realise that at the end of their high school, secondary school experience, they haven't really done anything exciting or scandalous or thrilling in the way that we are told by media and Hollywood should have happened by the age of 18. And they've, done very well at school and have a lovely friendship with each other and have nice times drinking their tea, but they haven't done drugs or stayed up all night to party, etc., etc. And so they start to kind of contemplate why we've been told that and go through the films that kind of tell us that and start to parody these films. And that comes to life and becomes a story in itself. And we start to see their little fantasy imagining play out as a real story in itself with Elder and Carter, the sexy cowboy. And soon, these two love stories maybe start to merge, and the two maybe realize that what they've been looking for from romance may have been much closer than they originally believed. So I have been working in film / TV / theatre for about 4 years now since I graduated. So I've worked in development, I've worked in non-scripted, I've worked primarily in scripted, worked on film sets, I've worked on high-end TV, I've kind of been on the production side of things, I've been a bit on the creative side of things, and then I've also worked at a talent agency. And then alongside that, I was working with my friend who I met at university while we were studying English together. And she wrote this play and I produced it. And then we did well enough at the small kind of pub theatre that we put it on at. Well, it did sell out. So that was why it was good enough. So then the next year we thought, well, it's actually perfect timing. Let's try and take on the absolutely horrifying, terrifying prospect of the Fringe, because we'd never done anything like that before, as both of us work in film and TV more than theatre. So very alien concept, but we were like, let's just give it a go. And we took it to Pleasance. It did do fairly well. We got some lovely reviews and we had a lot of sellout shows. I had a great time, was horrifyingly tiring and grueling, especially for the producer. And obviously for everyone, that's not to be like, the actors and directors, they do nothing. But we were very kind of low budget, like scraping, I was pretty much doing everything I possibly could. Yeah, we were very lucky that we invited some theatres to come and see it, and Park saw it, and the Wardrobe Theatre in Bristol saw it, and really liked it. So they came and saw the show and they liked it, and that just makes everything much easier. I haven't had to deal with the kind of like begging. And that's all very exciting, and that's happening. Start opening on the 21st of February, 3 weeks there, and then we go straight to 4 nights in Bristol.
I mean, to be honest, you've kind of answered an awful lot of questions within that, which is really cool. One of the first things I was going to say was, how did you get involved?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be basically a producer or at least like on the more creative side of production. I was working in production as a coordinator, travel coordinator, assistant production coordinator, all that stuff, which is very intense and definitely gave me a great foundation for like getting stuff done and scheduling and working very hard. But it's not the most fun to be just, organizing the shipment of like dead crows to Iceland or whatever, when you kind of want to be a bit more involved in the actual, not necessarily the writing, but the creative process itself. And so I was kind of hoping to transition towards that. And my friend had produced Billy, who's the writer. She's always known she's wanted to be a writer. She's an incredible writer. She kind of worked alongside some other friends who have their own theatre production company, which is called Tightrope Theatre, which is who we first made the show with. And she kind of helped on a production of that, which was called Nightfall. And that went on at the White Bear Theatre in Kennington. And that was very well received. That was written by Philippa Lawford. She's a wonderful theatre writer and director. And they were maybe going to collaborate on this next one. And then they realised that they were kind of too overcommitted and they couldn't. And so Billy was kind of like, oh, goodness. So she stepped up to direct it, which she was actually very pleased to do, but also quite scared to do because she obviously doesn't have professional training in directing. She's done a few short films and things, but she's mostly been on the writing side. And I was like, well, I'm very happy to produce it. I'd love to produce it. And she was like, thank God. And then we had a great time doing it, really. So we had the slot confirmed because we would worked before with them at the White Bear. And so the theatre were very happy to kind of take a chance on us, as it were, because they knew that the previous production had done well. And we got Arts Council funding for our first show of it, which was great and kind of blessed that we didn't have to. I mean, I know so many other productions give their firstborn child to get arts funding and still don't get it, kind of thing. So we got that, which made everything easier. We both work freelance, so it was easy just to be like, we're finishing I just finished on the Witcher Blood Origin, and so which was a hellishly hard, intensive job. So I was very happy to be like, I'm finishing that and I'm being a producer and I'm getting money for it because it was Arts Council funded. And yeah, it went really well. And I had the time of my life. Like, rehearsals were great. The show was so fun. Such a lovely script. Like I worked on it with Bill. She wrote the script and then we developed it together. And then we also kind of worked on it collaboratively in rehearsals, and then that's how it all came to be. That was the inception of it.
How easy was it between the two of you, where a producer and a director one starts and the other finishes?
Definitely. I would say that because of my relationship with Bill and the fact that she trusts me creatively, and I've worked on, she's written a novel and I've kind of worked on editing that with her as well, and I've read lots of her other writing, so I maybe more, and this is she's the writer, but as in I'm maybe more slightly kind of creatively involved because she has that trust with me because we know each other. I think if I was stepping into a completely new director's, writer's show, they wouldn't necessarily be like immediately as collaborative, because the producer has so many other roles as well. And that's not to say that, from what I know, from what I understand, the producer's role is kind of very different on every single production that they do. But yeah, I mean, we've known each other since we met on like the first day of Freshers, the first night. And I think we started talking about George Eliot's Middlemarch and how much we both liked it, little nerd girls. And we've been friends ever since. We're part of a very close-knit friendship group. We've lived together. So that freehand definitely works. And we've also worked together in film and TV. So during lockdown, we were both working throughout the kind of lockdowns because they had exemption, shoots did. I was working on a Sony film with a team and I got brought onto an HBO film and they needed someone else on the production team. And I was like, I know someone. And really it was kind of an excuse to be able to see your friends, because obviously you weren't allowed to see, you weren't supposed to see each other socially. So I was like, well, if we're working, then we have to. And so we just had the absolute time of our life, like carting around bloody like screen protectors and things like that across this, COVID set. And I was technically her boss in that situation. So we kind of created also a professional relationship alongside our, not that I was being like, I need this earlier, it's late or whatever. It was always going to be nice, but we did have that kind of relationship where we knew that we could be like, I need you to do this and I need you to do that. And we could respect that. Like a lot of what I'm doing now is keeping her in check on deadlines and things like that, which is what she wants me to be doing. But I know I can do it in a way that is not going to create a rift because it's very, separate.
For the Edinburgh show last August, obviously there's you as the producer, Billy as the writer, and then obviously you've got to get a cast. I mean, how much of a lead time is there on that?
What I will give you the inception story of when we went to Fringe is that we were both, again, Billy's works as a script editor. She was working on a script editing role on a new Disney show called Renegade Nell, which is coming out next year. It was Sally Wainwright show. And I was working at a talent agency and I was kind of ready to move on to something else. And so she was finishing her contract. And I think I read an article in the New Yorker about like a Fringe show that had done well. And we were both kind of being like, what are we going to do next? And I sent it to her. I sent it to everyone in our friends group chat being like, what an interesting article. And then we kind of started speaking on our separate little one-on-one messaging, being like, because she'd been quite like scared of the idea of the Fringe, as and I had as well, after we'd done our lovely, very kind of coddled little 5-day production at the pub theatre. And everyone has always told us, like, it's hell, like it costs you everything that you've ever earned in your life, and like maybe it's not even worth it and blah, blah. So we were a bit like, well, we've just had a nice experience, maybe just leave it at that. And then so we kind of got tempted back into it, and we're both missing it because it's such an exciting and creatively rewarding experience, especially this play. It's such a beauty. I love it so much, like, and the whole team loves it so much that it's such a joy to be working on something that's just like every single part of it is fun. And so that's kind of what hooked us back in. But that was very late in the day. That was far after, I would say, most people had applied to their venues and their Fringe and everything like that. So we were incredibly lucky. I feel like everything I say is just being like, yes, we were touched by heaven, you know. But we emailed a selection of theatres, and we said we won't do it if we don't get a good theatre or we don't get a good slot, because there's no point, you know, just doing it for the sake of it and getting somewhere that's in God knows where. So we were applying to all these places, and then we were so lucky that Pleasance had had a cancellation literally the morning that we'd emailed them of a whole full month slot in one of their nice venues. Well, it was bigger. We were applying for a smaller venue because that's what we'd done at the pub theatre, and that was what we knew that we could comfortably sell out. And they were like, we've got one which is bigger, so there's a 90 capacity, because we were working at kind of 50, 60 before, and it's for the whole month, and it's a really good one. And we were like, oh Jesus, because we didn't know we were initially going to go for the whole month. But it was such a good opportunity that we were like, okay, that's it, we're doing it. And that was great. And that's what kind of pushed us forward into it. By that point, we had spoken to our actors. So it's the same actors that we'd done in the first show at the pub theatre. And we really maybe wouldn't have wanted to do it if we hadn't had them on board, because they had such a natural chemistry. And, you know, they didn't know each other before, but people would come out of the show and being like, oh, I guess it was easy for you because they've been friends for years. And we'd say, actually never met each other. It's just very lucky. I mean, obviously that's why we cast it deliberately, and humbly I can say we cast it well, but you know, we just knew that everything would come together so much easier. We could have shorter rehearsal periods because we had that kind of knowledge that they had a beautiful relationship and chemistry already, and everything was shorthand. So that's how we were able to come into the Fringe at very, very short notice. I'm thinking this was like, April, like really, really late in the day.
You're almost like the final program's getting printed around about April time, I think.
It was like, we've signed up and now we need everything now. And it was like, okay. So there's a lot of like intense like Photoshop sessions and just like pulling everything together while we were both kind of still working full-time jobs. So it was a lot of late evenings, but needless to say, I handed in my notice very swiftly after we'd got the approval that we were going to the Fringe.
Speaking to a lot of people, it's kind of difficult with the day job. You know, some people will have an understanding employer. Some people will, you know, if the show's only an hour, they'll try and fit it in around their work. But you thought, no, I'm all in for this.
I was very ready to leave my position as it was. And also my whole career up until that point had been freelance. So you learn that you work for 6 months and then you maybe don't work for 2, and then you work for 8 months and then you don't, and then you work for 4 months. As a result, you learn that especially in film and TV, you get a fair good salary, but you have to save it away for a rainy day because you won't be working for a couple of months and you live off your savings. So that's how I've been operating. So it didn't really feel that weird or scary for me because I was just like, well, this is my new gig. You know, I've been working here for a year. Now I'm going to be working here for 2 months, and then I'll be figuring out what I'm going to do next. And I had savings to support my like personal expenses and stuff to do that. So I wasn't worried, and maybe I should have been, but I'm still fine so far. But I think
it's good to have faith in yourself. No?
I think that mindset massively helped, because I can really understand if I'd only ever had the security of like a full-time contracted job, that the idea of just like quitting for like a silly little cowboy show at the Fringe would be like an insane prospect. But yeah. And it's what I'd wanted, you know. I've been desperately, after I've been working in production been wanting to kind of do something in the creative side of things. So, and then I had a wonderful opportunity. So it felt like a no-brainer.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of costs, I mean, did you find, obviously, there's you, Billy, there's the 2 cast members, there's other people involved. I mean, how big was the team?
The team was minuscule. It is horribly expensive, the Fringe. Not in any way could I say not. But we definitely managed, like, when people were, which I think is great, a lot of shows that we were kind of working alongside, or as in people doing similar types of things and similar types of venues to us at the Fringe, after it were publishing their kind of budget reports on Twitter to show how much they spent and how much they made or how much they nearly broke even or whatever, just to kind of open the curtain on the intense expense that Fringe is and why you shouldn't go into it without that knowledge, which was excellent and amazing. But during that, I was a bit like, Jesus Christ, like we didn't do that. That we managed to get through on the skin of our, well, not on the skin of our teeth, but I mean, as a producer, I made a calculated risk, basically, that I cut every possible cost that I could and mostly put it on myself. Like I would never cut costs that would cause issues to other people. But if in terms of just like sweat labor, as I say, like I quit my job, I wanted this to work. Like it's something I really care about. I love the people involved. It wasn't a hardship for me to put myself fully into it. And everyone was mucking in, obviously. So the team was tiny. We did the lighting design ourselves. We did the music design ourselves. We literally, me and Billy sat down. She plays the banjo, obviously, very on brand for her, if you know anything about Cowboys and Lesbians. And we just composed silly little like banjo pieces for the scenes, the intros and the outros when we needed music. And, you know, we watched the play and we're like, okay, well, this bit seems going to be a bit sadder at the end and this scene's going to be more joyful. And then she just went, okay, well, let's do a Scruggs roll. How does that sound? And then we just played around with that. And we had a friend who plays guitar and has a microphone and he just like added some strums so it sounded a bit, you know, deeper and stuff. And then the lighting design was us literally just being like, okay, well, we have these two worlds. One of them, let's say that one of them's blue and one of them's pink. Okay, let's make it a bit more orangery. Okay, fine. That's fine. That works for what we need, you know. A lot of the costumes and things like that we had from before. We made sure that we paid everyone, you know, the actors were paid, I was paid, and we had people do a very like rudimentary set. We had someone we paid who did the painting some canvases that we could just hang up and carabiners. And then, yeah, social media was a big part of our marketing. We paid for PR, but a small package, a kind of first time Fringe package. And yeah, like not much else. Everything else was a lot of everything that we could possibly do on our own that we did. Yeah, a lot of relying on, I kind of knew that because of the play that it is, it's very based, it's for young people. And it's not even really for theatre people. It is, lots of theatre people love it, but it's also especially because of who Billy is, it's kind of for film people, it's for people who like films and for people who like TV because it's kind of parodies of rom-coms and stuff like that. And so I knew that it wouldn't really help if we were putting loads of money into like marketing in magazines and things like that, because like no one under a certain age reads that stuff or sees that things like that. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way at all, obviously. So my main campaign was social media and reviews, because I was like, we'll get the young people through social media and we'll get the old people by, you know, this was blah, 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 this review. And I had confidence that we get good reviews because we had them previously. And it's such like you hear Cowboys and Lesbians and you think, oh God, it's going to be really progressive and intense. And it's such a like wholesome, like everyone likes it. It's one of the grandmas come out of it and be like, that was lovely. That was very thought provoking. And so I had faith that we could get both sides and that was how we would do it. And came off. That's how we managed to do that. Very tiny team.
Yeah. Talking about reviews, I know you got a 4-star in the Times. I mean, do things like that, do you see a sudden spike in sales or a spike in noise and interest when something like that happens?
Yes. I think the title massively helped in terms of people knowing about it and hearing about it, which was a conscious decision. The original play, when it was on in London on its little pub review, it was called Scholars Creek, which is very Billy and very cute and very kind of like old timey, whatever. But I was like, it could be about a literal like historian. And I don't think anyone's going to see that. So I was like, we need something snappy, it's going to be Cowboys and Lesbians. And that massively helped for kind of like buzz at the Fringe. So we kind of already had that anyway. And then the Times, it did help with sales, but I think what it helped most with was age. So it was about bringing in that, as I said. So the first like weekend after we had the Times review, for the first time ever, it was about like 50-50, like people over 30 and people like under 30. Whereas before it had really exclusively been people under 30, which is great. Like that's what we want, you know, it's not like we've got a massive agenda, but like we're not but the young people, hopefully we're making them feel seen and joyful and seeing themselves in art. But with the old people, we want to be saying, look at this very beautiful queer story and understand that you can understand this too and feel connected to it. And it's, so yeah, that was the main effect that we felt from that.
And in terms of the more traditional stuff, I think I saw some of the videos you were doing some flyering. Did you do a lot? Or?
God, did we fly out? Or God, did I fly? Yes, definitely. I mean, that was again, title and poster. That was my main thing. I was like, it's the Fringe. We needed to stand out. I insisted that when we were flyering, we were wearing cowboy clothes. I was always dressed as a cowgirl or whatever. I mean, often I look more like a pirate, but that was the aim, to stand out. And a lot of people said, would say like, you'd be shouting at these people as they walk past, like, Cowboys and Lesbians. And a lot of people would be like, no. And then they go, you just say Cowboys and Lesbians. Yeah, actually, we'll have one of them. So I've heard from because a lot of the actors that we were both actors who we were working with had been at the Fringe before with other shows. And Julia, who plays Carter the Cowboy, and Nina, had been there the year previous with a very great, very interesting kind of artistic piece called Move Fast and Break Things, which I can't remember where it was, maybe Summer Hall. And it was a great show, and it got, I think, quite good reviews. I don't think they were there for the whole run, which is always hard. But she was like, flyering for that was hell, because Move Fast and Break Things it's a good title. And obviously there wasn't any better title for like what it was, because it was quite an arty thing about technology and the person who kind of invented Google, I think. And it's very hard to pitch that. So we were lucky that flyering was a very useful resource for us, because we were able to get people engaged with it. And yeah, I mean, we did all the things that people say you should do. We went to every single queer show, and we exited flyered it if we could. We did it just randomly on the streets. We did it at busy times. We did it first thing before our show. Every single day we would do 2 hours before, and then at least 2 hours after, and maybe we could do 4 if one of us was doing 2, and then the other one would do later. But the way that we made that slightly less horrendous was that we would try and be like, I want to see this show, so I will go and exit flyer it. I'm going to see like 3 or 4 shows today after my show, and I'm going to exit flyer all of them. And then if I lose this many flyers, then I've done my job. And if not, I stand on the street for another like hour or so.
And I mean, in terms of sales, and went well. Mm-hmm. Speaking to someone else previously, they said they had a sold out run, but sometimes it was only like until an hour before it sold out. So you said, it was great to sell out, but you didn't have that relaxed feeling of, well, that's done now. You still had to sell, right up till the last minute.
But this is what I'm saying. Every single day at 2 hours before, we were vlogging our wares. And all of us were. So this is the thing. We split it between, sometimes if the actors felt like they needed a bit more prep time, I was very conscious that I wouldn't, they needed to have their warm up, they needed to have chill. If they were feeling ill or run down, I would make sure that, again, it was pushed on me and Bill to be doing that. But yeah, there was not a single day. I think there was one day that I knew that we would sell out. I think it was maybe like the last Saturday. And I was like, we're already at X number. We're normally only at that, 2 hours before. I'm just sure that we probably don't even have to do any work. I still think I did, but I think it was maybe only me and only for an hour. But apart from that, every single day, intense push the night before and the morning before, and it would sell out half an hour before. I would literally be, because I was teching, I was doing the sound and the lights and everything. And so I'd be like on my phone as people were walking in, like refreshing. And I'd be like asking the staff, like, are we sold out? Are we sold out? And they'd be like, you're sold out. And I'd be like, oh, great. Okay, amazing. So no. It was not like, I know some people like the incredible Lachlan Werner, who did Voices of Evil. He just kind of at the end of the show, at the end of the run, like just threw out all his flyers that he'd never used, because he was like, I didn't want to throw them away before because I just didn't believe that it kept selling out, but they just did. And so we never used to do it. And I was like, God, that's the dream. I mean, he completely deserved an incredible show. I loved it. But no, that was not what we were. But that was part of, again, maybe if we'd spent a million bajillion pounds on marketing in different ways, we might have not had to do that. But that was our decision, and it went all right.
I mean, did you consider using professional flyers, or did you, like you said, you wanted to keep costs tight?
No. Again, this is the thing. Because we all cared about the show, And again, because everyone did want to be seeing other shows as much as possible, and you could combine it very easily with doing, it didn't feel like too much of a burden for most of the part. And the other part, especially with me, I was like, again, I'm the producer. I can just do it. Like, I can just do it. Like, the only other thing I will be doing in this situation is like having a rest and lying down. And like, I will be resting for a long time when this finishes because I haven't got anything, I haven't got a job. This is my job. So I would just be like, okay, well, another hour then if I felt like it needed it. And everyone else was happy to do it as well, as long as that, we were making sure everyone was looked after and no one was getting overstrayed. And also I've heard that, especially with something especially with me like making everyone flipping like dress up and stuff, especially with Cowboys and Lesbians, you're going to be like kind of a bit flirty, a bit kind of like there's something for everyone, or like you look like you'd enjoy Cowboys and Lesbians. Like, yeah, our budget was so small. Maybe if we'd have got really sick, if all of our actors had got really sick and I'd got really sick, then definitely. Like, I think, and also I think for comedians and also for people, like there was a Character Floor, was a 1-woman show, which was great. It was about ADHD and queerness. And she employed flyers, and I was like, yes, that is the 100% correct position, because she was having to do this very long, intensive, voice extensive, energetic 1-woman show and then flyer afterwards. She was like absolutely dying, and she just got some great flyers and it made a massive difference and it completely helped her. So I don't in any way, I just think it's specific, like depending on what you can do and what.
That makes a lot of sense. So in terms of the social media, was there one particular site you used? I mean, was it very Instagram, TikTok, or a bit of everything?
Flipping everything that would have us. I'm not really a big Twitter person. I'm loathly having to get back into Twitter for the sake of doing more things for this run for Park and Bristol. I'm very on Instagram, to my shame, for my sins, as it were. So that one came a bit easier. TikTok, again, I'm a bit of a cusper. Like, I'm not a millennial, but I'm also a bit of an old Gen Zer. So I'm not really. I'm a classic kind of watch the TikTok reels come onto Instagram a few weeks later as the meme goes. So that one was, again, getting my head into, but I've seen enough of the content that I knew the kind of thing that we should be doing there. So yeah, get yourself stuck into literally everything. I mean, I know that Instagram, the main thing they push is video content. So that's the main thing that you just got to like grin and bear it and go for it, because a lot of people I know kind of my age or whatever who just aren't into that. The kind of traditional format is, you do a post every day and it's a picture, But Instagram just buries that these days. Like, it's about pushing it on stories. You're supposed to be, blah, 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 but you're supposed to be doing X amount of stories a day throughout the day, and you need to be doing video content as much as you possibly can through reels or elsewise. And it will just make your like following grow, and it will just reach people who it hasn't reached elsewise. So you got to do it. I kind of hate it, but also I do have some fun with it. I mean, we were also paying for ads on Instagram and Meta, obviously. Like, so I wasn't really massively targeting Facebook, but I was just paying for like all Meta ads to be going through, with the main focus on people seeing on Instagram stories, because that's how I see my ads, is Instagram stories. Then obviously you can't translate that to TikTok. You just got to be making the TikToks yourself. But it's hard. I feel like it's easier I feel like I'm jealous of comedians and people whose show is themselves, because they can just kind of do funny little videos. Whereas I don't have access to the actors right now. I'm very much not, the face of the piece. I'm not a comedian. So I can't just like film myself. Well, some people do. Some people are like, hello, the life of a producer. That's too much for me. I can't do that. I would be too ashamed. But yeah, I would. The whole, I mean, it's a tired story, but the fatigue of content creation, of being like, I don't know what to do, especially when I haven't got subjects to film, is annoying. But it will become easier once we're in rehearsals and things like that.
And so for the run you've got coming up later in the month, I think that's like about 22 shows, something like that. Can you reuse a lot of the stuff you've already done, or for promotion, do you have to start again?
Yes. I mean, as I keep saying, just do everything. I would say definitely repost everything. I'm definitely going to repost everything that I've done in terms of all the like videos. But you've also got to be making new stuff constantly to feed the beast and get people involved. And also just like, you've got to be funny, you've got to be interesting. And so, yeah, I've got ideas. They'll be coming.
Yeah. And I mean with that, because it's the 2nd of February now. Does it start? Is it the 22nd, something like that? 21st?
21st, yeah, it's 21st, our first preview.
21st, so it's just under 3 weeks. I mean, it must be difficult because, yes, you don't want to try and do all your marketing, the 3 days before you start. But on the other hand, you don't want to, you might reach the right person today, but because it's 3 weeks away, it's not top of mind for them, and they'll, it's a kind of difficult balance.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think people. So I mean, the thing that I hear is that you have to see it 3 times, ideally in a variety of different ways before you book a ticket. So you want to read an article about it, you want to see an ad for it, and you want to see a poster or whatever. Obviously, it's not that, because in London you're probably not going to see a poster necessarily. Like, I mean, we're certainly not going to be paying for like posters on the tube, but equivalent of that. So I think it's less about, what that one person sees it once now and then is like, oh yeah, I want to do that, and then they forget about it, because if they've clicked on it or they've engaged with it, then they're probably going to get that ad again closer to time, and they're like, oh no, I did want to see that. And then if they've also, maybe because they've clicked on it, then maybe they're getting pushed other content from us, like my personal. So we've got to, the way we're going to be doing it is, well, the way we are doing it, the marketing campaign has started, is Park Theatre themselves have a meta ad campaign going on that we will be paying for and have like coordinated with them. And then I will be separately doing a kind of more like lo-fi, Instagram, TikTok, etc. presence, and maybe boosting some of our posts additionally in a more kind of like personal effect. So yeah, so potentially if they've seen our stuff, they might be more likely to be advertised the Park advert, and vice versa. And it's just like hitting them more and more until they're like, oh, it started, now I'll buy a ticket. Whereas if they actually saw it for the first time when it just started, they might only think about getting around to it by the time it's finished, kind of thing, is my thinking. And also I believe I think is the truth. I mean, it's a combination of different, you've got to win people over, like I don't expect someone to buy a ticket after their first little like silly reel that they've seen from our page, but maybe they would like it or follow it from that and then get engaged, get won over. Yeah.
And so now you've done the Fringe as well. I mean, do you have those kind of advocates, so people who've seen it, who like it, that will push things for you as well?
Definitely. I mean, that was what was so lovely about the Fringe, is that so many, especially young queer people, connected with it so intensely and had such a, loving relationship. We'd had people who came like 3 or 4 times throughout the run. They'd say like, 3rd time seeing this and best thing ever, bringing my friends again next week. And we'd be like, God, like, thank you so much, but I've never done that in my life for anything. And they would be, again, some people were making their own little TikToks about us. That was absolutely like heartwarming beyond belief. So, I mean, these are just normal people. So I don't think they're going to be, actively doing a marketing campaign for us being like, don't go. But definitely we had a lot of people posting when we had done certain big announcements, like post reveals or show announcements, saying like, I saw this at the Fringe and I really loved it, And I think they're definitely telling their friends, like word is slowly spreading in a way that is comforting.
And so obviously the bulk of the run is at London, and then there's a few nights in Bristol.
Yeah.
Is there plans for the rest of the country later on, or even back up to the Fringe next year or this year?
So we'll see. I mean, in terms of the rest of the country, other theatres, etc., we'd definitely be interested in doing that. I don't think it's like, if we don't get a full tour or a transfer, then this is a failure. Like, we're very pleased and happy to be doing the Park. It's a lovely experience. And Bristol is such a fun little add-on because it's got such a great queer community, and it's a student city, and I just think we'll have the best time ever. We're also collaborating with a queer club night while we're there, who's throwing an after party, was one of the first kind of queer club nights in Bristol that's got really popular. So I think the whole thing is just going to be an absolute ball. In terms of future, yes, we'd love to go to other places. Like, I mean, I hate that the theatre world is so concentrated on London and, the South as well. And And a lot of people said that, you know, they say like, come here and da da da. But it is just, I mean, funding is the thing that we need to do that. Like, we're managing to do this kind of like just off the back of the Fringe. We haven't got external funding, which again, is just very stressful as the producer and in general for everyone involved. So, well, I'm hoping not. We're paying people fairly. So it's not hopefully stressful for the actors and things like that. But for, you know, me and the team and Billy, I don't want that. So when you have to be looking at like transport and accommodation, that's just too overwhelming to consider without someone like some kind of backing of any form. And also exciting people wanting us, you know, we're not just going to like go to a random place for the sake of it. In terms of coming to the Fringe next year, not with Cowboys and Lesbians, I wouldn't say. My kind of understanding is that go out on a high and have your first time Fringe experience with your show. And I know there have been success of people who come back with their shows, but I think there's a bit of fatigue of it, because you can only have that excitement and Fringe buzz once. And when I was there, and I'd never been to the Fringe before, ever, as a punter or a person who's putting something on, and I'd say, oh yeah, there's this show, should we go see it? And people would kind of be like, oh yeah, that was on there last year. And that was kind of almost a reason not to see it. And so I was like, okay, well, note to self. It would just feel more tired, I think, and less enthusiastic because we've done it. But that's not to say I do not know if that is true for other people. And I'm sure there are lots of big successes. I know like Godot is a woman, was there double time, and they've gone on to do exciting things and stuff. So do not let me poo-poo that if that's an exciting thing that anyone is listening is going to do. In terms of going with a different show, I mean, we haven't applied. I think like Billy's working on other writing projects. Can you hear that?
That's all right. Don't worry.
Billy's that's my set designer who's just out in my balcony working on the set. And yes, for the record as well, just to credit everyone who's due, although for the Fringe we had a very, very small crew, for this we have slightly expanded it, and we have a lovely, beautiful, incredible set designer and lighting designer, thank God, who will elevate the show exponentially, hopefully. But yeah, in terms of, Billy's working on lots of her own writing projects. She's writing a sitcom. She's writing another play because she's working at Park Theatre as like on a residency kind of thing. So she's doing lots of things. So we're not thinking about the Fringe in that way. And like, who knows what I'll be doing next? Who knows what I'll be doing in 3 months? Like, I'm taking it all as it comes. I wouldn't say, none of us would say no. If we had an exciting play that we believed in as much as Cowboys and Lesbians, we would definitely go again. We had a great experience, and we'd love to do it again at Pleasance, which we had a great experience with. But this is not my time to be like, well, thanks for asking, because we're just announcing blah, blah, blah. No.
I think a lot of people, talking to a lot of stand-ups, you know, especially when their show is a bit more theatrical, it's not just, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not just jokes, that there is more of a story arc that obviously that takes time to come up with. Yeah. And so they're kind of doing every other year. I think that makes sense, because it's just such a big investment in yourself, your time, the energy of going into it. To do that every year is a huge task.
Definitely. I mean, I grew up like loving and listening to and watching stand-up comedians, and that I've been very interested to kind of hear that kind of like seeming like community exhale of relief when people are kind of realizing like they don't have to do it every year. Comedians no longer have to do it every year. They don't have to do it for the full run, especially if they're a bit more established. Like, there isn't this culture of, you know, like, if you're not doing that, then what the hell are you doing with yourself? Which seems great. Again, I'm not part of it, so it doesn't affect me as much, but I'm very for it for the people having rests and not killing themselves and their mental health, which everyone seems to say is base level when they're at the Fringe, especially if you're a stand-up.
Yeah. You were saying the kind of having the month was, in the nicest way, kind of forced on you. If you'd have had complete free range and choice, what kind of thing would you have gone for, do you think?
Well, no. So little naive Fringe virgins, me and Bill, were kind of scared of the Fringe. And so the idea of being like, we'll just go for 2 weeks and that'll be fine and that'll be better and less expensive and whatever. But when we were speaking to the actors, Julia, who's been there for lots of different shows, you know, she's been there for really successful ones and less successful ones. She was in Lights Over Tesco, I think it was called, which was sold out for its entire run at the Pleasance and was featured in The Guardian and stuff like that. And then she's been in other smaller ones. And she was like, there's no point doing 2 weeks if you're not like quite already have a good foundation and have a big marketing and PR spend, because you kind of build up reputation and buzz about by the 2 week mark, and you start to do well and then you go home, which would be soul destroying. And so she was like, no, we really need to go for a month if we can. And that's why we were like, okay, yes, when they gave it to us. And very lucky to have that. We would have probably made do if we'd have had a good space somewhere for less. But having been there, and obviously I'm sure lots of people went for 2 weeks and had a really good experience and it was wonderful. But having been there, I do really see that. Like, we were still waiting on, like, we had our Times review come out in like the third week. So, you know, and we had loads and loads of review. Like, the Scotsman didn't come in until later and that stuff. So I would have been again, counterintuitively way more stressed if we'd have just been there for a more finite time, because there's less of a kind of like, if we don't sell out and get a 5-star review in 7 days, none of it's worth it. And it's still horribly expensive even to do it for 2 weeks. So yeah, but that was our naive view of that it would be easier to do it for less. And it obviously is, in terms of like, it's like less tiring, but I think there's lots of advantages of the full time.
Obviously, we talk about social media, that kind of thing. Are you looking to do local news and things like that to try and get, you know, the really local stuff?
So, I mean, yes, we have a lovely PR company who did, so when we did the Fringe, we had a kind of first time Fringe little budget thingy, and now because we worked with them, so it was Chloe Nelkett Consultancy, and because we worked with them before, we were happy to stay with them, and now we've got the big boy budget proper package from them. So yes, I'm leaving most of that stuff to them, and I'm very grateful for it, because it was a bit more collaborative on the last one. And when you don't have connections, it does feel like a bit soul destroying, having to contact all these random, you know, news people, trying to get them to reply to you. We've so far, we had literally yesterday, Billy was speaking, did an interview, Shout Out Radio, which is a Bristol based radio. And she was talking about both the park and the Bristol run, so like an LGBTQ radio station. So yes, we would love to do that. But in terms of what I'm doing local, I'm wanting to get in contact with, and this is what I did before when I was at the White Bear Theatre, was getting in contact with a lot of like local queer groups. So even just like Instagram groups, being, you know, queer poetry, queer night, queer, you know, queer theatre, queer everything, and kind of messaging them and being like, we'd love to organise a kind of group trip for you guys, you know, maybe a discount, maybe a few comps, anything like that, because our priority obviously is getting as many young queer people in there as possible, because we think that hopefully they will enjoy it most, and also that's who we've made it for, and that's who we want to make theatre more interesting and accessible for. And so that was something that I found really fulfilling as well as successful in the last one, because there are a lot of these kind of little groups, because queer people want to do things together, and a lot of queer people don't have queer friendship groups. I think it's a lot easier for younger Gen Z people. I think a lot of more of them are openly queer. I think that was like a statistic that came out the other day, that Americans, like Gen Z, is more likely to be queer than Republican for the first time ever. And so I think that's easier. But lots of people, even if they're out and very accepted by their friendship group, they're not in a queer friendship group. And so it's hard of them to go things to like gay club nights and stuff like that, because, you know, it's a bit it's a hard thing to be bringing straight people into queer spaces, and also maybe they don't understand or they don't want to, and so they need these groups, these communities, so they can do that with people that will understand and they won't have to explain it to. And so that's a lovely thing that exists, and a lovely thing that we want to kind of collaborate with.
Thanks for listening. There's more details in the show notes about Eleanor and where to find out more about the show. If you enjoyed this, check out some of our previous episodes where we speak to people about making creativity pay.